Now, Mauritius is recognized as a financial hub, and it has the potential to become a leader in Africa and act as a regional IFC. The Board of Investment in the country has set up an international advisory board which will assist in moving the country from a middle-income developing country to a higher-income developed one. For more, I'm joined in studio by Mike Rees, Group Executive and CEO of Standard Chartered Bank. Mike, thank you so much for making the time to join us. Now, what has the advisory board been tasked to achieve?
Sorry, I didn't quite hear the question. Just repeat the last question.
What has the advisory board been tasked to achieve?
Okay, well, the advisory board was set up about 15 months ago, 18 months ago, with the idea of giving some advice to the government and the strategic visioning that should be in place for Mauritius. So we had the first meeting about 18 months ago, and we spent a time wallowing in terms of what's the big opportunity for Mauritius in the global context. And of course, at that time, most of the world was dwelling in the aftermath of the financial crisis. And so we framed an opportunity for Mauritius, which was to be the jewel of Africa, if you like, to be the Singapore of Africa. And the opportunity there was a real competitive advantage. And as the world has evolved over the last 18 months, that opportunity has become more compelling. So whilst a number of the hygiene issues were put in place over the last 18 months, today's conversation was how does Mauritius take that vision and turn it into a reality? It already has a very vibrant and competitive financial sector, but how does it turn that into being a jewel of Africa, a knowledge base for Africa, providing education, medical research, to create that vibrancy, to take opportunity of the growth in Africa over the next 20 to 30 years.
Mike,
that's what we've been discussing today.
Let's particularly look at that vision that you talk about, Mauritius becoming the jewel of Africa. Can you talk us through what are the key anchors of the strategy going forward?
Well, if you look at most global financial centers these days, they have certain characteristics. The first is that they have trust and confidence in it as a financial center. And that challenge is only going up higher and higher with the advent of regulation about financial sector. The standards financial institutions are having to meet just go up and up. So how does Mauritius leapfrog from being about 43rd in the world in financial transparency to compete maybe in the top 10?
Mike, can we put...
Those are some of the...
Mike, can we put some definitive timeframes around that quantum leap that you speak of?
Well, all these things need to be put in place. So what we're creating is a vision about the opportunity of the future, and then working on the plans to actually achieve that. So in our view, less is more. So focusing on a few key things on which to make progress in the next 12 to 18 months, and using that as a platform for building sustainable success is the key to long-term sustainable growth.
Of course, Mike, you have just painted a short time frame window, 12 to 18 months, and dare I say this is likely to be what would be your low-hanging fruit. Can you drill us down a little bit deeper into those low-hanging opportunities? Which sectors are at the top of the priority list?
Well, if you think about Africa as a continent, really there are three things going on. First of all, there's the development of the resources side of the economies, which is energy, copper, iron ore, agriculture. You know, Africa has got 60% of the world's arable land. Only 17% of it is in productive use today. So, you know, some of the wealth that's come into the African continent in the last 5 to 10 years has been on the back of that. And yes, we've seen a change in commodity prices worldwide, but now we're seeing a sustainable growth from that. The second thing that happens is that you're getting money moving into the middle class, a growing and vibrant middle class, so consumer markets in their own right. So by 2030, according to our estimates, Africa will represent about 1/3 of the global population, and a big part of that will be increasing wealth of the middle class. So there's Africa as a consumer market in of itself. And the third element is the infrastructure requirements needed to actually deliver on both of those opportunities: the power, generation, transmission, the roads, the railways. So the question is, how does Mauritius then play into those big key themes and the financial needs and help the investment flows?
Of course, those key themes, Mike, also have a bearing or are dependent on the progressiveness of government policy. Now, does the advisory board have the scope and the relationships to work in tandem with upcoming and current policies?
I would say two sides to that. The Mauritian government has put a lot of agreements in place in the last few years, not only about taxation agreements, but investor protection treaties. But it also needs two hands to clap. I would turn that around the other way and look at the initiative that President Obama announced in Africa about 6 to 8 weeks ago, which is about Power Africa, and the need to create commercial solutions for fundable and investable projects in power across 5 countries. And so all these opportunities are emerging, and they need to emerge both through Mauritius building the linkages, but also developing the right commercial propositions in those countries as well. And what we're seeing at Standard Chartered is the acceleration of these initiatives.
Mike, thank you so much for making the time to chat to us. A very insightful conversation indeed. That was Mike Rees, Group Executive and CEO at Standard Chartered.